This is my full spoilery recap for Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is the first book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, specifically the first book in the Nightborn duet. So this is the one that you want to start with if you're looking to getting into this series. I'll put the original cover here just in case that's helpful. Before I get into the recap itself, I just want to do the usual admin. My first point being that this is going to be a full spoilery summary. I will be spoiling this book for you, so don't come at me in the comments for spoiling too much of it. I will be spoiling the first book. I won't be mentioning anything that gets revealed in the second book, so you are safe to watch this video if you haven't read the second book yet. My other disclaimer is that this is obviously a fantasy book and I am really bad at pronouncing fantasy names because I don't listen to fantasy audiobooks typically. So my pronunciation might be all over the place, you're just gonna have to go with it. And then thirdly, my last little bit of admin is that I wanted to tell you that I also post full written recaps over on my website Recaptins. It's something that I really love doing and I only recently brought over book recaps to my Booktube channel and now they're here to stay. So without further ado, let's get on with the recap. I think I would like to explain the world building a little bit first because when I was reading this book I was quite confused about all of the different types of vampires and stuff. So with the help of my pointy stick that I bought, let me just go over the world building very quickly. I'll also introduce most of these characters at the same time because it just makes sense. So this book is set in a world full of vampires and these vampires all worship a goddess called Nyaxia. Nyaxia is one of many gods and goddesses and she had a husband called Alaris. They had a bit of a terrible time with it, let's say. They didn't have a happily ever after. Nyaxia is the goddess who created the vampires and allows them to live. She gives them their powers, so obviously they all worship her. The gods in this universe are very much present. They sometimes can appear to people, meaning the vampires do have reason to actively worship her and pray to her and things. So every so often there is a trial. I believe this trial is called the Kajari, happens every 100 years. The vampires from each of the three houses, which I'll go into in a minute, all take part in this trial and whoever wins, there's only one winner, they get to ask Nyaxia for a wish. These guys are all vampires apart from our main character, Aurea. We have the House of Blood. This guy is Septimus, we'll talk about him more later. We have the House of Night, which is what Aurea is part of, despite not being a vampire. Again, we'll discuss this later. And over here, behind me, we have House of Shadow. And in this book, I don't believe we meet anyone from House of Shadow. So it's kind of irrelevant, I just wanted to put it there to make it clear that there are three different houses. In the House of Night, it is pretty much divided between two sets of people. We have the Hyash vampires, which is the part of the house that Aurea and her father come from. And we have the Rishan vampires, which is the part of the house that these two people come from. Here we have Rain and Misha, I think. So the House of Night is divided into two, and this house is ruled over by this guy Vincent, who is Aurea's adoptive father. Vincent, 200 years ago, won the trials. He overthrew the Rishan king in order to rule over the House of Night. So I hope that makes sense. I'm really enjoying waving this thing around, by the way. The House of Night is the main one that we will be focusing on. So the Hyash vampires and the Rishan vampires don't like each other, and the Hyash vampires have it very, very good at the moment. I'm going to be honest, it wasn't described very well in the book, so it did take me some time to try to make sure I understood it. If there is anything that I'm missing, tell me in the comments below because something should probably be clarified here. Okay, so now I think we can get on to the actual plot recap. I'm going to go into as much detail as I can, but please do put comments clarifying details in the comments below if you want to. It's really tricky for me to describe absolutely everything that happens without this video lasting like 2 hours. So the book starts off with a prologue, and here we have Vincent meeting Aurea for the first time. She's all by herself. In fact, his guards, his vampire soldiers, are surrounding her and she's trying to like fight them off, and she's only a child at this point. So she's kind of like trying to like bite them and jab at them and stuff, and then Vincent lands, because vampires in this book can fly, obviously. He lands while all of this is going on and he's like, guys, I'm adopting her. He starts calling Aurea his little serpent. He's super impressed by her, and so he takes her back to his castle because her family are nowhere to be seen. Aurea, I think I mentioned at the beginning, is a human. This is very unheard of. Humans shouldn't be living with vampires. In fact, humans are preyed upon by vampires. So Vincent raises Aurea to be scared of vampires and tells her to look after herself, trains her to fight and everything because vampires are super dangerous. After the prologue, obviously we move on to chapter 1, that's the present day. Sorry, I'll try to stop waving this around because it's probably really distracting. Araya is now an adult, she is all grown up. As I said, she is being raised to be Vincent's daughter. Unbeknownst to her father, who again is the king, she sneaks out of the castle every single night to try to protect the humans in their district because they are being preyed upon by the vampires, and she kills vampires when they're trying to feed on humans because she obviously doesn't want the humans to die. Vincent would not approve of this, so this is like a massive secret that she is keeping from him. So Araya does have some like mild magical abilities in the beginning of the book anyway, and she thinks they're mild because she's a human, and as the vampires get their powers from Nyaxia, humans don't worship that goddess and she doesn't favour humans, so that's why Araya thinks that her abilities are very, very small. Vincent, however, is obviously super powerful and Araya wants to be like him, and because of this Araya would like to take part in the trials called the Kajari. These are typically only trials for the vampires who worship the goddess, but Araya, being a very special human who is adopted by a vampire, she is allowed to take part. Araya hopes to win and to gain a wish from Nyaxia, and Araya plans to ask for better powers and to bind herself to Vincent, so that way she will no longer have to worry about being a really weak human among a load of vampires. Vincent says that he can't turn his daughter into a vampire himself because this is a thing, vampires can turn humans, but he doesn't want to because it's apparently super dangerous and she could die from the turning, so he doesn't want to do it. Okay, so now I think we're all caught up on the history, the lore and stuff, and the plot actually gets started. So Araya has entered into these trials, and the night before the trials are about to start, a bunch of other vampire contestants eat and kill her friend Ilana. Araya gets super upset by this. She sees them all like feasting, and so she kills a vampire in revenge. She is also grabbed by a second vampire and she stabs him in the thigh because she needs to get away from him. So then she escapes and runs away and sets up camp in the greenhouse, thinking that she can sleep in a greenhouse quite safely because the vampires can't come out during the day and there are windows all over the greenhouse, so she'll be covered in sunlight. So the next day, once the rest of the vampires wake up, or the next night, I suppose. Later on, the dead vampire, the one that Araya killed, his brother Clin, accuses the vampire that Araya stabbed, Rain, this guy, so Araya stabbed Rain the previous night. Clin accuses Rain of killing his brother. Rain kind of accepts this. He knows obviously that Araya killed the vampire because he saw it happen, then he grabbed her, which led to the leg stabbing, but he doesn't turn her in. He is fully accepting that yeah, he did kill this vampire, whatever. He doesn't like being accused though, and so he uses his superpowers. They're not really superpowers, they're just really, really intense powers called the Asterisk. He uses those to kill the vampire who was accusing him. So now both brothers are dead and can't take part in the trial. The first trial then goes ahead. The vampires and Araya are divided up into groups. For the first trial, they have to fight off some demons. Rain and Araya are in one group, and Misha and a bunch of other vampires are in the other group. So Rain and Araya should be working together, but because they don't like each other, they don't really know each other at this point, they don't to begin with. And the fight against the demons goes quite badly. But eventually Araya does figure out that they need to kill the alpha demon, so to speak, in order to kill the other demons. And so their group are able to defeat all the demons, and Rain is also able to tell Misha, I think through some like glass or something, that what to do so that her group can also fight. So after that, Araya has a secret meeting with Vincent. I don't know if she's meant to be meeting with him or if it's just a secret because like he's the king and it would be a big deal if he showed up. So they head to a secret location and they meet, and Vincent starts giving Araya healing potions. These secret meetings go on kind of throughout the book, and Vincent doesn't really give much away. It's clear that he doesn't like the fact that Araya is working with Rain and Misha eventually. Giving her the healing potions does give Araya the edge that she needs because she's a weaker human compared to the rest of the vampires. As these meetings go on, Vincent starts to look more and more distracted when he's talking to Araya, and she knows that something is going on, but she's too distracted by the trials and stuff to question it. Rain ends up asking Araya to team up with him and Misha. At first, Araya refuses. She doesn't want to team up with vampires because, again, her dad has told her vampires are evil and scary, but this does change when Araya is attacked. She is injured by another vampire, and she realizes that she isn't safe in the greenhouse all by herself, so she goes to find Rain so that she can get some allies. So Araya is super injured, and she climbs up the tower where these two are staying, and then she passes out. And you'll notice throughout these books that she passes out a lot. It's kind of her thing. So here she is able to properly meet Misha, and Misha is super lovely, and she gives Araya her own room. The room also has loads of windows in it, so Araya should hopefully feel comfortable there. Vampires can't get in and get to her. A vampire called Angelica forces herself into the apartment and threatens Araya, but Rain is able to defend her. Angelica is super angry with Araya because Araya killed her vampire partner. That's the one who tried to kill Araya in the greenhouse. So Rain wants to practice fighting with Araya so that they can work properly as a team, understand how the other works. It's a struggle, to say the least. They both come out very frustrated and Araya pushes Rain out of the window. This is using a burst of magic that she didn't even know that she could conjure. Rain thinks that maybe she has been hiding stuff from him, but that's obviously not the case at all. Araya didn't know that she was able to use her powers like this. As I said before, these vampires do have wings, so Rain is fine. He's able to fly back up, it's not a problem. But he does leave in a huff because he's really annoyed with Araya for keeping this supposed secret. So Araya heads into town and tries to find something to smoke. She acquires a couple of cigarettes from a man who she doesn't know, but he does tell her that he has been placing bets on her and whether she will live or die. So far, he has been betting that she will live, and he has made loads of money so far. So Araya goes to the tower and confides in Misha, says that she wasn't keeping this a secret. She honestly didn't know that she could use these powers. Araya meets with Vincent again, and he gets more annoyed with her because she is allied with vampires. He didn't want her to do that, and she's trying to explain like she needs to because she's the weakest person there. And so she needs allies to be able to win these trials. And Vincent is clearly not happy about this, but he seems to have so much other stuff going on that we don't know about that he doesn't really push it. So the second trial begins and the contestants have to make their way through a maze. Araya has to fight her friend Ibrahim, who is also a vampire. One thing that I did forget to mention at the beginning when I was talking about like world building and stuff, vampires often kill their own relatives because they feel threatened by them. And so Ibrahim's parents actively like destroyed his wings and pulled out his teeth so that he wouldn't be able to kill them and I guess usurp them. So obviously Araya and the reader feels very sorry for him, but he's fighting in there just as all the others are in the trial, so Araya does fight him off. And along the way in this maze she also has to rescue a little human girl who she is surprised to find in the maze because why are humans getting involved with the trials? She bumps into Rain again and he helps her fight off Angelica, who's also obviously in the trial, and so they pass, which is really good news. After the trial, Rain follows Araya into the human district because she is going to kill some vampires. He's super impressed when he sees what she's doing, that she's protecting the humans. Araya is quite upset about the humans being used in the trials in such a way, and so Rain takes Araya to an orphanage where he has left the girl from the maze. He's made sure that she's safe with other humans. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to find the girl's real family, but you know, the orphanage is as good as. She should be safe there and Araya is very grateful. So from then on, Rain and Araya start to work together to protect the humans from vampires. One night, Rain takes Araya to a pub and Araya isn't really sure what to do. She feels very uncomfortable. She's not been around this many humans altogether, and when the humans are drunk, they're dickheads basically. So she's not having a great time to begin with anyway, but then she does start to relax and she realises she quite likes hanging out with Rain. Araya asks Rain if he was the one who turned Misha because they're both turned vampires, they used to be humans. Rain insists that he wasn't. And then obviously we can't have the characters having too good of a time. There is a massive explosion because it turns out that the Moon Palace where the contestants are staying has been attacked. Araya and Rain head back to go and find Misha, who is presumably still in the tower. Rain is able to carry Araya as he flies back to the palace, so that speeds things up a bit. They do find Misha and she has been severely injured because she's been fighting off demons, and so Rain and Araya join in with the fight and get rid of the demons. Rain takes Misha to safety and he has to come back for Araya afterwards because he can't carry both of them, and obviously Misha is the one who is currently injured. After all of this commotion, Vincent holds a speech and he basically blames the Rishan rebels for the attack and he promises vengeance, and this basically starts a whole war. Jasmine, who I haven't introduced you to yet, this is Vincent's general, and I think they're also kind of like sleeping together because why not? Look at them. Jasmine arrives and takes Rain away for questioning because he is a Rishan vampire and they think that maybe he's part of the rebel group. They think he's got something to do with the attack on the palace. Araya is quite upset about this. Obviously Rain was with her the entire time, and so she goes to talk to her father and tell him not to be ridiculous, and she demands that they let Rain go, but Vincent says they have to find out the truth. They need to know what these rebels are up to. Araya points out that Rain is her only ally now that Misha is too injured to compete. So she tells Vincent that he had better not let his soldiers break Rain. So Aurea finds out that the goddess Nyaxia apparently won't release Misha from the trials, even though she is super injured and can't fight. So Aurea goes to talk to the minister. This guy is like super ancient, super creepy, one of the super old vampires who apparently has a direct link to the goddess, and Aurea offers him some of her blood in exchange for Misha being allowed to drop out of the trial. And this creepy guy accepts, and he drinks from Aurea's wrist, and then Misha is allowed to drop out. Rain is released and he returns to their new rooms. Obviously they can't go back to the old ones because those were destroyed. Aurea helps Rain clean and stitch up his wounds from the torturing that he had done to him. Because of the wounds on his back, Rain won't be able to summon his wings for quite a while because his back is just like shredded in a bad way. They talk a little bit and Rain tells Aurea that Misha used to be a priestess, and that's why Misha is able to use a different god's powers, because Misha used to worship a completely different god to Nyaxia. Unfortunately, it turns out that this god abandoned Misha during the demon attack, and that's why Misha struggled so much, and that's why she's now injured. The next trial begins. During this one, Rain and Aurea's minds are merged as they are allies, which is really off-putting for both of them to begin with, but eventually they're able to figure it out and work together. They can each feel and see what the other is feeling and seeing. So Aurea is able to use a massive burst of her magic to fight off more demons and some hellhounds and some other vampires, I think. Obviously they get through the trial, everything's fine. And then there's a ball, because of course there is. Everyone gets dressed up and Aurea dances with her father. She once again notices that he's super distracted and distant. She asks him what he has done, but he won't tell her. And this is when Septimus introduces himself. This is the guy that I mentioned is from the House of Blood, and this is also the guy that has been making bets on Aurea and also selling her cigarettes. Rain doesn't like him, clearly, and so Aurea is a little bit on edge. Rain and Aurea head to the pub together for a second time. Aurea tells Rain about Ilana, her friend who was killed at the beginning of the book. Rain asks Aurea what she would ask for if she wins the trials, and he understands that Aurea would ask Nyaxia to turn her if she wins. Eventually they both go home and Rain ends up cooking for Aurea, which isn't really an important plot point, but I thought it was really sweet. He's apparently a really good cook. And then Rain and Aurea travel to see Misha, who is under strict orders to rest. She's staying in a little farmstead just beyond the dunes. So here Aurea meets Carissa and Keturah, who are both vaguely hostile towards her. It's not a very nice situation to be in, but they do seem to be friends with Rain and with Misha, or at least they seem to respect Rain for some reason. As they're talking, they mention that Vale is on his way back with his new wife. We know Vale from the novella, which you are supposed to read after The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I don't think it's essential, to be honest, but I did enjoy reading it. It was nice knowing who Vale was when I read Ashes. So Aurea hears Carissa and Keturah talking crap about her, basically. She also overhears Rain defending her, which is lovely. Aurea does notice that Rain seems to be very much in charge here. So back at the Moon Palace, the vampires and Aurea get locked in before the next trial starts. This means that the vampires do start to starve and become really like bloodthirsty because they aren't getting their usual human blood delivered to them. Aurea is mostly alright because she eats normal food, but even that is like, they're slowly making their way through their rations. So Rain tries to hold out, but eventually he is starting to get really quite aggy, and so Aurea doesn't feel safe around him and she asks him to leave, and he does. And then it's time for the next trial, and in this one the vampires are going kind of wild because they are also hungry. They're all plonked into a big forest, and Aurea realises that there are animals here, but they have all been poisoned, and so these animals aren't safe to drink from. Aurea rushes to find Rain because they're not obviously together at this point, and she snaps him out of his bloodlust thing that he's got going on. Together they find a cave to hide in because she warns him about the animal blood situation. With her full permission, Rain does then drink Aurea's blood because that's the only safe blood for him to drink. After they leave the cave, the two of them try to rush to essentially the finish line. Aurea and Rain realise that the city of Salinae has been destroyed and Vincent's army has killed all of the humans. Salinae is where Aurea's family are from, and so Aurea is very upset that her father has basically killed her only link to her family. She could have had other relatives there that she didn't know about, but they're all dead now. So Rain and Aurea head through the mist, which is now rolling in. This mist is deadly. Luckily they are able to grab a cloak, which is able to protect them for the most part, but if the mist does touch them, it starts to like wear away at their skin. and it's really quite uncomfortable and dangerous. Rain also uses this opportunity to wrap his wings around the both of them for extra protection, and his wings get mildly like singed. Angelica and Ivan show up because they always do. Rain throws Ivan into the deadly mist. I thought this moment was actually pretty cool, to be honest. It's one of the moments that stuck with me throughout the book. This is all to protect Aurea from Angelica, by the way. And so the final four make it to the end of the trial, and those four are Aurea, Rain, Ibrahim and Angelica. So at this point it's probably important to mention that we learn through flashbacks that Aurea lost her virginity to a vampire who thought it would be safe for them both to have sex, but unfortunately he lost control and he bit her. Aurea was quite traumatized by this. She went running to her father, and Vincent had Aurea kill that vampire as a lesson, and this is why, or partly why, Aurea is so scared of vampires and thinks they can't control themselves because she herself was bitten. The trial is over, and then Aurea demands to speak to her father. She asks him why he has destroyed the city of Salome, because parts of her human family could have still been living there. During this conversation she realises finally that her father doesn't respect humans at all, and he even says that they are livestock, which is just lovely. Aurea storms off and lets out her rage by killing vampires who are trying to attack the humans, the ones who are in the human district. Rain and Aurea finally get it on. They figure that they deserve at least one night together before the final trial, because the final trial has now been brought forward to the following morning, so I guess they should make the most of it. And then finally the final trial begins. Aurea kills Ibrahim fairly quickly, so she's now in the top 3. It's actually a really sad moment and I still feel awful for Ibrahim. Angelica comes next and she almost kills Aurea. Because Angelica is from the House of Blood, she is able to use blood magic, but as she is basically dying, Aurea sees Rain lead with someone in the crowd and the blood magic vanishes, and so Aurea is able to kill Angelica. And then it's down to the final two. Rain and Aurea have to fight. So the two of them battle it out. I won't go over the entire scene, but eventually Aurea does win. At the end she realises that Rain taunted her so that she would fight properly and kill him and then win the trials because he wanted her to win. So Aurea is the winner, Rain is dead, and she's obviously really upset. I'm only laughing because of what happens next. Nyaxia, the goddess, appears and she talks to Aurea and asks what her one wish would be. And Aurea says that her one wish is for Rain to win the trial. At this, Vincent goes super pale because what the hell? His daughter is meant to wish for a blood bond between them and to turn, but that's not what she's done. She's just wished for this guy to be resurrected, and now what's gonna happen to Vincent, I don't know. I do know, and I'm about to tell you. So Vincent goes super pale and looks very concerned, and Nyaxia finds this as amusing as I do, and so she grants the wish, and Rain comes back to life. He's revived, and this means because he won the trial, he also gets a wish. So this is like 2 wishes in one. As the champion, Rain wishes that the power of the Rishan Nightborn King becomes unsealed and restored to the Rishan heir, i.e. Rain. Rain has been the Rishan heir to the kingdom all along. Just as a quick reminder, Vincent killed the previous Rishan king and his house of Hiaj took over, and he has kind of been oppressing the Rishan house this whole time. He had the Rishan house powers sealed. Aurea is somehow shocked by this turn of events, and to be honest I was a little shocked as well, but I knew something was going on with Rain, and Aurea did notice that everyone was like respecting him and really looking up to him, so I feel like she shouldn't have been that shocked in my opinion, but everyone keeps like lying to her and stuff, so she probably doesn't know how to tell the truth at this point. So Rain immediately gains superpowers and he kills Vincent, and Aurea gets to watch her father die, which is lovely. Vincent finally tells Aurea that he loves her in what I thought was quite a shocking twist. Aurea is revealed to be Vincent's heir because each of the vampire kings from both of the houses get an heir, and those heirs have an heir mark. That's what Aurea has. It starts to glow. The Rishan vampires immediately go on the attack and Rain has to stop them. Rain basically tells them that he will make Aurea his slave bride in order to get them to back off, and that is, I know I'm not meant to be giving my opinions or whatever, but that is the only part of this book that I really hated. I hated what he did here. I just want it to be known, it was awful. So now Aurea is the heir to the Hiaj vampire line. Her father is dead and Rain is the king of the Rishan vampire line, so he is the king of the House of Night. This means that Araya is basically a threat to Rain, because if she kills him, she becomes the queen. So she is taken to the castle and she is locked away. She and Rain are able to talk, and Rain admits to her that the man who turned him into a vampire hundreds of years ago was the Rishan king. The Edom normally passes to blood relatives, like close blood relatives, but that didn't happen in this case. Instead, Rain became the heir. And this probably happened because Vincent went ahead and killed every single blood descendant of the previous king that he could, so that this didn't happen. And yeah, it happened anyway because Nyaxia is a troll. So the whole reason that Rain joined the trials in the first place was so that he could take back his powers that he deserved and kill Vincent. Rain, very casually, in my opinion, says that Araya's blood tastes different to normal humans, and he theorizes that Araya is half vampire and half human. And I feel like this was like very casually dropped in there and it could have been a bigger focus of the ending of the book, but it wasn't. He just mentions it like he knew all along. Cool. This does mean that Araya was Vincent's biological daughter all along. Vincent had Araya with a human woman. So Rain and Araya get married in a small ceremony. This isn't really what Araya wants to do. He's forcing her into it, but Rain thinks it's the only way to keep Araya alive. Araya does refuse to complete all of the vows. There was one in there, something about like giving him her whole heart or something, and she's like, no, I'm not doing that. You killed my dad and you betrayed me this entire time, and Rain allows it because that's fair. Rain also admits at this point that he accepted a deal from Septimus, from the House of Blood, in order to save Araya's life in the final trial. So Angelica, being from House of Blood, reported to Septimus, and Septimus intervened at the end there to stop Angelica from using her powers. And now Rain owes Septimus, which is great because he's a creep. So right at the end of the book, Jasmine, the general, shows up and she asks Araya what to do because Araya is now queen, basically. And that means that Araya now commands Vincent's army. So Araya tells Jasmine to flee and to gather strength while Araya stays at the palace and figures out what to do next. And that is all. That is my entire spoilery recap of The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Like I said at the beginning, I've probably left out some minor details there, but I hope I've explained everything clearly. Leave questions in the comments below if you would like to, or leave clarifying comments. I really don't mind. Let me know if you found this helpful, and if you made it all the way through, please leave a serpent emoji. I know that's the most basic one to choose for this, but leave a snake emoji to show me that you got all the way to the end. I would really appreciate it. I hope this recap was helpful for you. I'm aiming to also recap the second book, Ashes, can't remember the whole title, Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, I think. Sometime soon. I just need to write up my written recap first so that I've got the notes for it. Otherwise, please subscribe. I try to post recaps regularly, and I also post plenty of other types of videos as well. So thank you for watching, and I hope to speak to you all soon. Bye.